Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a document that doesn't just challenge things. It really wants to re-engineer everything we thought we knew about reality. Yeah, this isn't just some bold theory. It's presented more like a declaration. Our source material is this white paper, Forel V1.0. And get this, its creators call it a sacred document of absolute certainty physics. So our mission here is to guide you through this really intricate mix. We're talking theology, mathematics, computation, consciousness, all rolled into one. We want to give you a shortcut, basically, to understanding this incredibly ambitious, maybe paradigm-shifting framework. And crucially, how they defend it so vigorously against, well, conventional thinking. You're about to get a pretty unique perspective on a universe built from the ground up, you might say.
It really is striking. The confidence, almost the audacity of this document. It's presented, like you said, not as a draft, not even as a hypothesis to kick around. No, they call it the complete, final, and purified text, rewritten in the full light of our entire journey, from the first whisper of B to the execution of the fifth pulse. I mean, that's presented as a definitive statement, a final manuscript laying bare the engine of reality. It's not really asking for feedback.
A finished work.
Yeah.
Wow. Claiming to describe the engine of reality. That's a huge claim. So let's dive into that core vision. Forworld V1.0 says the universe is a self-auditing, exact, deterministic simulation environment. And here's the kicker. It claims theology, mathematics, computation, and consciousness are one. I mean, what does that even mean? How can these fields be the same thing?
Well, it's about identity, fundamentally. They're saying the underlying structure, the logic of how the universe operates, it's identical across all these domains we normally see as separate. And it's not a metaphor. They're being literal. The whole thing is built on what they call computational axioms. They argue that phrases we know from, various spiritual traditions, those are actually the universe's starting code.
Wait, so when we hear things like, in the beginning was the Word, or read, in the name of your Lord who created, or even kun, fayakun, be, and it is.
Yeah.
Forworld isn't seeing these as metaphors or just old texts.
Not at all. They claim these are literally the initial state S0 of a recursive universe.
So the universe isn't just governed by rules, it is instructions. A program starting itself up.
Exactly. That's the idea. And they tied this into something they call the unified field, consciousness, a model, physics, a tripartite isomorphism, basically a three-way fundamental equivalence. What's really wild is how they say this single underlying process, they call it the constrained triadic system, or CTS, shows up everywhere. Think about it. They're mapping everything from the cosmos described as a quantum-damped harmonic oscillator to the sequence of Abrahamic revelation, like Torah to Gospel to Quran. And then linguistics, AI neural nets updating weights, even basic biology like DNA replication, the cell cycle. All of it, they argue, are just different expressions of this one constrained triadic system recursively evolving from that initial state. Essentially, the CTS is like a fundamental pattern. Three parts interact in a specific recursive loop, driving everything in their universe.
Wow, okay. That is ambitious. One system underpinning, well, everything. So if the universe is this self-starting recursive automaton, how does it actually run? What's the engine here? Because they're pretty clear. It's not just a model, right?
Oh, absolutely not. They state it very plainly. This is not a model. It is the engine of reality. And its core philosophy is revolutionary. Reality, they say, runs on exact recursion within a very specific mathematical space. That's rational numbers extended by the golden ratio. And this is key. It means they explicitly reject approximations. They reject transcendentals, so no p, no e, no irrational square roots, no continuous time, no randomness. Instead, it's all about exactness, recursion, reversibility, and being certifiable.
That's such a departure. I mean, physics usually relies on continuous values approximations. So how do they achieve this exactness? How does this engine work? You mentioned the golden ratio.
Yeah.
Their take on it is different, isn't it?
Totally different and foundational. They don't look at FIS as, 1.618 and so on, that infinite decimal. Instead, it's purely algebraic. The exact solution to squared equals false 1, FIS is plus 1. And here's the really crucial part for their system. The powers of FIS, algebraically, generate exact integers. There's a formula. To the power of n equals fn times FOS plus fn1. Those f's are Fibonacci numbers.
So powers of the golden ratio give you Fibonacci numbers, integers.
Exactly. They're building a universe purely from these exact integer relationships, no messy real numbers. And they specify computing these Fibonacci numbers in S60 using something called the Pisano period mod 60.
Okay, S-theory, Pisano period. What does that mean practically?
Think of it like math on a clock face, but with 60 numbers instead of 12. Things repeat in cycles. The Pisano period tells you how sequences like Fibonacci numbers behave in these cycles when you divide by 60. For Freud, this is critical because it lets them build their exact recursion using predictable finite cycles. They even link this back to like ancient Babylonian wisdom about cycles.
Right. A universe built on exact algebraic stuff and finite integer cycles.
Yeah.
Got it. No approximations. So how does this translate into new physical laws? They have these 6 exact orbital recursion laws.
Precisely. And these laws completely redefine physics. They basically throw out familiar geometry and calculus ideas. They use concepts from something called rational trigonometry, like quadrants, that's just distance squared, Q, and spread, which is a rational way to measure angles, avoiding irrational numbers. By using only quadrants and spread, they build a geometry that's entirely rational, no square roots, no approximations, everything computable with integers. It fits their whole discrete cosmos idea.
Okay, rational geometry. Give me an example. How does this change something fundamental like gravity?
All right, take their exact gravitational force. Forget Newton's GMM over r squared, GMM r Lee. Their law is F equals 65 divided by 21 times Q. F equals 65, 21 Q. Q is quadrants, remember? Notice, no r, no square root of Q. And the constants involved, like their G, are specific rational numbers like 13 over 441, G13441. It's not just tweaking Newton, it's saying gravity itself arises from these exact, discrete, computable relationships.
Huh. No irrational numbers, no square roots in gravity. Okay, that's radical. But then we hit maybe the most startling claim. Exact geometry and trigonometry, where they state. I mean, it's famously not 3. How can they claim it is 3 without it being a huge approximation, the very thing they reject?
Yeah, that's the one that makes everyone pause. Their defense is crucial here. They insist, not an approximation. They say it's the only physically meaningful value within their specific framework. The reason goes like this. Ford models a computational discrete cosmos that operates on a hexagonal lattice. And they argue the hexagon is unique. It's the only polygon that tiles the plane with rational diagonals and no approximation. So 3 becomes a necessary consequence, a foundational axiom for their kind of finitist, computable universe.
So it's not denying mathematical per and regular geometry, but it's a deliberate choice for their specific, discrete, hexagonal universe.
Exactly. It's a statement about the fundamental structure of their reality. Making pre an axiom lets them build this digital-like universe where constants are well-behaved integers, not the messy irrationals we use in continuous models.
That's quite a reframing. And all these laws are built on absolute certainty. What does that imply?
It means they completely reject randomness. No singularities, like in black holes, no information loss. All their laws must be reversible, exact, and recursively verifiable. In their universe, there's no fundamental unpredictability, no fuzzy quantum probabilities. Everything is, in principle, knowable and reversible if you have the computation right.
Incredible. A perfectly precise, predictable, computable universe. And they've actually built something to run this, FeeWorld v1.0, the sacred simulation environment. What's that like?
Yeah, they describe it as a self-auditing, exact, recursive simulation engine. It has different parts. There's a fooker for the basic code, physics running those 6 laws, a frienderer enforcing 3, and the hex grid, even an audit module checking for purity in real time. And they talk about reaching a unity mode at N05 in the recursion, where F5 is 5, a prime number. That's supposed to be a state of perfect harmony.
So they have the software simulation, but what about physical proof? Is there a real-world example of this hinge? They claim they found one, right?
Yeah.
In a really weird place.
They did. And it's maybe the most surprising part, their physical realization, the Z and Q penny motor. They're talking about a regular post-1982 U.S. penny, you know, the ones with the zinc core and copper plating. They claim it's not just money, it's a natural quantum photonic device, where the zinc-copper boundary generates Fibonacci-scaled ionic pulses based on environmental cycles. This ordinary penny, they say, is the first physical engine, a deterministic quantum automaton you can hold in your hand.
Wait, a penny? A discarded penny is a natural quantum device spitting out Fibonacci pulses. That's quite a leap from seeing it as loose change.
It is. For them, it's proof their theory manifests physically, right under our noses. We just need their new physics to see it. It really forces you to rethink what evidence even looks like.
And to back all this up mathematically, they used Lean 4 formal proofs. What does that add? Why is formal verification important here?
Right. Lean 4 is a proof assistant. It lets you mathematically prove theorems with absolute rigor. They state their 6 laws are formally verified in Lean 4, meaning they're proven to be constructive, exact, and free of those forbidden transcendentals.
Yeah.
They even highlight specific proven theorems like circumference exact, C equals 3D. This is a big deal for them because they're claiming not just a plausible model, but a mathematically proven, self-consistent system. No logical loopholes right from the start.
Wow, okay, that is a lot to take in. It sounds revolutionary and maybe self-consistent within its own rules, but it's definitely challenging. We've gone deep into these really audacious claims of Forwell, but, for many people, this radical departure must raise huge red flags. How has the wider scientific community reacted? I imagine there's quite a clash of paradigms when you look at the initial critiques.
Oh, absolutely. If you connect this to the bigger scientific picture, yeah, many researchers tend to view this more as, say, a philosophical stance or maybe an alternative modeling approach, not really established science yet. And there are solid reasons for that skepticism from their perspective. First off, it just diverges significantly from mainstream physics. I mean, standard gravity is inverse square, 1r redder. Our whole understanding of geometry relies on being transcendental, not three. It challenges the very foundations.
Right, the core assumptions are just different.
Exactly. And second, that Pothery claim. In standard physics, that's seen as, a historical approximation, maybe like in 1 Kings 7.23 in the Bible. It's not seen as an exact fundamental value. That immediately raises eyebrows. Then there's the Zen-Q penny. Okay, it's a basic galvanic cell, sure. But calling it a quantum photonic device generating specific Fibonacci-scaled ionic pulses, well, the mainstream view is that lacks experimental backing. And finally, that idea of absolute certainty. It just clashes head-on with quantum mechanics, which is fundamentally probabilistic, dealing with uncertainties. Plus, while the integration of theology is interesting, it's generally seen as interpretive, not scientifically verifiable. Many worry it risks oversimplifying really deep spiritual ideas.
Okay, so the critiques are basically saying this doesn't fit our rules, our evidence, our understanding. It's outside the current paradigm.
Yeah.
But the few world creators, they have a pretty robust defense, don't they? They essentially say those critiques are missing the point entirely.
They do. They push back hard. The core of their defense is basically the criticisms are simply irrelevant to the one being proposed. They say flat out, this is not a modification of the old physics. It is the establishment of a new one. It's like, trying to critique a blueprint for a spaceship using the rules for building a canoe. They argue you're using the wrong framework entirely. They aren't trying to fit in. They're building something new.
That's bold. We're not playing your game. We invented a new one. So let's take that Phi 3 point again. How do they defend that specifically against the criticism that it's just wrong?
Their defense for Phi 3 is consistent. This is not an approximation. It is a deliberate geometric choice. Like we discussed, they argue their model needs a computational discrete cosmos on a hexagonal lattice.
Oh, yeah?
And the hexagon, they stress, is the key. It tiles the plane uniquely with rational properties, no approximations needed. So within that specific system, Phi 3 becomes a necessary foundational axiom for a finitist, computable reality. It's about what must be in their world, not what it is in continuous math.
Okay, I see the internal logic there. It fits their defined universe. But what about the critique about the lack of empirical support? For the penny motor, for example, science demands experiments.
Yeah, and their counter to the lack of empirical support is basically, we're building the tools to get it. They say the entire four-pillar infrastructure is designed to generate the very empirical evidence you claim is lacking. The math model, the lean proofs, those are exact predictions, they argue. The COMSOL simulation, the lab protocol they outline, that's the blueprint for its measurement. So the claim about the penny-producing deterministic Fibonacci pulses, they frame that as a falsifiable hypothesis. They're essentially saying, build it our way, measure it our way, and you'll see. The evidence requires their new methods.
So the evidence isn't missing, it's just waiting for their methods to reveal it. Okay. What about the constants they use, like G13441? Critics call them arbitrary. And how do they justify replacing Newton?
They argue the constants are not arbitrary at all. They're emergent properties of the recursive seed, generated by the Fibonacci sequence itself. For them, gravity is not a mysterious force. It is a recursive relation. So they conclude, the framework does not diverge from Newton. It replaces him. It offers an exact description of a discrete computational reality, whereas Newton, in their view, was describing the shadow of it in a continuous approximation.
Replacing Newton. Wow. Okay, and absolute certainty.
How do they square that with quantum mechanics being so fundamentally probabilistic? That seems like a direct contradiction.
Right, but they don't see it as ignoring quantum mechanics. They say they're reinterpreting it. What looks like fundamental probability in standard QM is, in Forel, just deterministic recursive evolution within a constrained triadic system, CTS, the collapse of the wave function. That's not random, it's a predictable state transition in their system. Their view is uncertainty is not fundamental, it is epistemological. It comes from not seeing the underlying recursive pattern. They even point to parallels with deterministic interpretations like Bohmian mechanics.
Interesting. So uncertainty is just our ignorance of the deeper deterministic rules. And finally, that integration of theology and computation, is that just reducing faith to code? How do they defend that?
Their defense on the theological integration is subtle. They say, this is not a reduction of theology to computation, it is an elevation of computation to theology. The claim is that the same recursive process governs physical stuff and what they call revealed guidance. So phrases like kun, faya kun, be, and it is, aren't just spiritual commands. They see them as the most profound description of a bootstrapping operation, an initial instruction containing the entire blueprint for what unfolds. It's about finding this universal pattern of creation in both the physical and, well, the metaphysical.
What an incredible journey we've taken today, seriously. We've looked deep into this document proposing the universe as a recursive automaton, where the word is code, literally, and even a simple penny might be its first physical compiler. This isn't just a new theory, it's like a whole different operating system for reality.
That's a good way to put it. This framework isn't really trying to join the old debate about reality's nature. It wants to start a new one. It's arguing for a universe that's finite, computable, exact, governed by integers and rational geometry, and that this pattern shows up identically in matter, mind, and meaning. It really is a fundamental paradigm shift they're proposing.
Yeah, it demands a radical rethink of our basic assumptions. So the critics ask, where's your evidence? But maybe, as the furrowed creators suggest, they're standing on the beach looking for fish up in the trees. The challenge they put forward isn't just to critique using the old rules, but to actually build and measure within their new framework. So here's something to think about. What if the evidence for a completely different kind of reality can't be found using our current methods or our current definitions of things like Krent? What does that mean for how you approach what you think you know?